Welcome back, everyone. I am about to do something that is honestly scaring me a little bit. And it's not conditions, it's not anything like that. I am about to paddle with a piece of gear for 4 days that I have never used before. And it's replacing a piece of gear that I've used for 20 plus years. I am literally like, my stomach is hurting a little bit. It's that scary. Let's go. Okay, so how did I, someone who's been called a shill for Werner paddles, get into a situation where I'm paddling with a Lendal paddle? Let me just point out a few things just for clarity, just so that we're all on the same page. Werner Paddles has never paid me. Werner Paddles has never interacted with me on social media. Werner Paddles has never given me a paddle for free. I get pro deal pricing on paddles because I work in the industry, but I've never gotten anything for free from Werner Paddles, and they haven't paid me. That's important to know. People have accused me of being like an under-the-table shill for them. I do highlight their logos in a lot of photos because they're obvious and they're easy to see where I mount cameras. It's not so much done on purpose, but it happens. So now, in terms of Lendal, they have also never given me anything for free. They are loaning me these two paddles for a month, and then I'm returning them. I assume I could get pro deal pricing from them in the future, but I've never done a Lendal pro deal. These are my first paddles with them. So I just wanted that to be clear. I'm not getting paid by anyone. I'm going to express real opinions. If there are things that trouble me, I will say them, and I apologize to the great folks at Lendal who have been amazing. This is probably why Delta Kayaks doesn't really interact with me on social media anymore either, because I did a long-term test of the Delta 17, a boat that I love, but did say a couple things about it that I didn't like, and I've never heard from Delta again. So hopefully that doesn't happen with Lendal. At this point, I have still not paddled those paddles. Wanted to just be clear. I wanted everyone to understand sort of where I'm coming from, where I am, and where I'm going with these. I'm not getting paid. I just asked if I could borrow them, and I borrowed them. It started because of someone like you. I actually don't know who it was. I can't find the comment that spurred me on, but it was either on the video I did a few weeks ago called Why I Use a $400 Paddle, or it was on one I did, I think, during the pandemic, called Paddle Decisions. Someone commented, you should try a Lendal paddle. And I did spend some time trying to track down a Lendal. I knew a couple people that owned them. Joey from Turning Point Boatworks offered me up a paddle. He was too far away for me to really go and borrow it for a couple hours. It just wasn't practical. And someone finally said, you should reach out to the company. I actually reached out to their Instagram page, and they said, oh, just email sales@Lendal NA. I emailed Lendal. I said, hey, I'm a YouTuber. Here's the size of my audience, and I'd love to demo a paddle for a month, and then I'll return it to you. The response that I got was from one of the owners of Lendal, who said, I'd like to talk to you on the phone. I'm interested. We could definitely do this, but I'd like to talk to you on the phone. I had 2 45-minute phone conversations with this guy who was both super knowledgeable, like way more knowledgeable than me, has been, as long as I've been in the paddling world, he's been in it as long, if not longer, at a much higher level. And he would say, like, so I was talking to Nigel Dennis. You know Nigel Dennis, right? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, I know of Nigel Dennis. I've never met Nigel Dennis. So his circle of paddling community friends is way different than mine. And essentially he said, I'm happy to send you a couple of paddles, but you're gonna wanna sell your Werners, which is, I think, a bold statement. I should say, I've been paddling Werner paddles for over 20 years. My very first real paddle was a Werner, and it was bought for me by my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. Yeah, if you buy me a Werner paddle, I'll marry you. We talked about the construction of the paddles. The paddles are essentially handmade in a small factory in Rochester, New York. And the thing that really strikes me is that as you go shopping online, like you go to REI, they don't have Lendal. You go to like the big outdoor stores and they don't have Lendal. This is a small company that does not have a very big reach. And to give you sort of an example of that, their Instagram feed has like 100 followers more than me. and I definitely don't have a big feet. Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I'm excited to paddle these paddles. I'm also a little nervous about paddling these for both reasons. A, what if I don't like it? And B, what if I love it? I just got a new paddle. Oh, I should point out, I have not paddled with this yet. This paddle is brand new. I've never paddled a Lendal paddle. This paddle is gorgeous. It is beautifully manufactured. It is made in the United States. Most paddles today are made in, quality paddles are made in the United States. Even with a brand new Werner, I can find something that a blemish, a mark, a scrape, a scratch, and I can find none of that on this paddle. It is absolutely gorgeous. There are a couple of things about it that are different, and I need to stress, change is scary. Changing something as integral to what I do, like a paddle, is super scary. So I'm going to point out a few things that are different. I haven't paddled them yet. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're different and I need to see what they're like. First strokes with this Lendal. This is a nice paddle. This is beautifully made and it just feels good. And we'll see if the little things I'm concerned about are things to be concerned about. The first thing that is different is the shape of the shaft itself has a shape to it. It's oval and almost comes not to a point, it's like a rounded edge at the front. And this is something that I noticed immediately when I did this, is it rolls forward because there's a little bit more weight in the front. What Lendal on their website says is that this is because that is the shape that your hand makes naturally, and so it's more comfortable. It may be. I will see. I am very excited to see. The other thing is the ferrule joint closure, which on my Werners and on most paddles is a button. This is a little latch, and it's beautifully made. It says on their website that they mill all of the parts for it. It's easy to operate. My concern, it does stick out a little bit, and I'm used to a smooth paddle. And I've dinged Aquabounds for a big clunky. This is not big or clunky, but there is something there. So I'm curious to see what that likes. I'll be in a sand environment. I'm curious to see if it picks up grit. I'm curious to see how well it works. I will say, a couple times a year, I deal with the push button on my Werner getting stuck from salt water. We'll see how this does. The only other thing that I would sort of add on this, it's this, so the Werner has that geared insert. This is smooth and is marked right on the paddle, like almost like etched or engraved, so that you can adjust it infinitely instead of some cheaper paddles have like 2 or 3 options. The Werners have, I think, 8 options for feather. This is unlimited feather options and a beautiful printed, and actually not printed, like, as I said, etched or engraved and then painted white. I'm assuming it's painted white, I don't know. Markings. The only thing I would like is I'd like an additional mark on this end so that I can line it up a little bit easier when it's closed. This is also designed to be adjustable in terms of length by, it looks like 5 centimeters. So this is a 220, but if I wanted it to be a 222, I could do that. Very interesting, very different from what I'm used to, and we'll see how it paddles. But that's my initial thought, and I'm a big fan of initial thoughts of like, how does this strike me? Oh, the other thing that I think is super interesting, 2 other things actually. The first is, on their website it says that they can put any logo on the paddles, and it doesn't look like you need to order 1,000 paddles to do that. This is printed and not a sticker directly in the layup, which is super cool. And this is really beautiful breast cancer awareness, which the owner of the company and I had a long talk about. They're super passionate about it. Oh, that's pretty rad. This is the breast cancer awareness paddle. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
I know.
And so I have all of my paddles set so that every month I have an appropriate paddle. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. They're like super, Lendal is like super cognizant of breast cancer, as the owners have had a number of people in their family had breast cancer, so they did a breast cancer awareness paddle, and that's what they think. I'm hurrying to get this video out in October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Really beautiful. And I've got to tell you, when I worked for REI, we had PFDs with the REI logo on the back. If we could have gotten Werner paddles with the REI logo on them, we'd have done that. I've never seen this before. I am fantasizing about an Adventure Otaku logo on a Lendal paddle. Can I have my paddle back before you disappear in the suite? The other thing that I think is really interesting, let me grab a different paddle. More really beautiful artwork. This is the Lendal Voyager. Both of them are Lendal Voyagers. This is a bench shaft. I am an adamant not bench shaft guy. And the gentleman that I was talking to at Lendal was equally adamant that I had to try his. He says it is unlike any other bench shaft. They call it a modified crankshaft. So I'm going to test this out. I'll tell you what I think. Equal to the other Voyager that I've got, beautifully made. Not a blem, not a scrape, not a misplaced piece of epoxy on this thing. It is gorgeous. That's my initial thought. As I said, I haven't paddled these. I'm excited to get them on the water. I gotta tell you, I'm already thinking it's gonna be hard to send these back. Okay, I shot a final thoughts on these paddles on the water, and the weather was so bad. This is what it looked like. Some things that concerned me were the shape of the shaft. So let's talk about it now. Yeah, they were great paddles. I really liked paddling with those. The trip leader had the Lendal Storm, so I got to paddle with that a little bit too. Yeah, my big problem now is that I don't need a paddle. I just got a Werner just like 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago. Those were super nice. Okay, it was not without hiccups. I had zero problem with the little claspy thing that I was a little concerned about. I would love to do a long-term test. Maybe they could send me one for long-term testing. I would love to do a long-term test to see if it sticks a little bit or anything, but I never noticed it beyond that. It took me an hour to get used to the shape of the shaft. Beyond that, I didn't think about it. Yeah, they were super nice paddles. It was interesting looking at the video of myself paddling in them. It does look like I was paddling a little bit differently. It could have also been the conditions. It was cold, it was windy, it was wet. It was not a great trip. That video's coming. I mean, it was a great trip. The people were great. I was thrilled to paddle. The weather really didn't cooperate. And so it could have just been that I just wasn't comfortable, like physically comfortable. One thing that I didn't mention that I didn't notice until I got on the water. These paddles do not come with drip rings, which I thought was interesting. And I realized, and I could be wrong about this, I haven't talked to anyone at Lendal about it. I feel like the design of the throat of the paddle, the throat is where the paddle blade joins the shaft. I feel like the way that that's designed makes that operate as a drip ring. Like the only issue I ran into was paddling in high wind with the MCS, which is their bench shaft. When I had it feathered, my hand got wet. That could have been a lot of factors. It could have been something I was doing, I don't know. But that was the only time I paddled these paddles, both flat and feathered, both of them. And that was the only thing in terms of drip ring, not having a drip ring that I noticed. And that could have been me. But yeah, these are great paddles. If you are in the market for a paddle, for a real paddle, if you're like, I'm ready to spend 400 bucks on a paddle. Brett said this is why he paddles with a $400 paddle. If you're looking to buy a real serious paddle and you're not looking at Lendal, you're making a mistake. They're good. They're that good. I didn't think about the paddle while I was paddling, and I think at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. I think if you're thinking about a piece of gear, there's something wrong. I pretty much just paddled. It was great. I didn't really think about it. So there you go. That's my 2 cents after 5 days, 6, 7 days, 50 miles, give or take, with a paddle in my hand. Should be enough time to make a decision. Yeah, I'd paddle with it. But you know what I got to do right now? Put them in a box, send them back, because they don't belong to me. They're really nice, but I got to send them back. If you found this helpful in any way, shape, or form, you can buy me a coffee down on Coffee. My books are all there. The guides ways are there. The simple guides are there. The digital versions are direct download from Coffee, so check those out. It would help me out a lot. This is the time of year where my views start to slow, which means my income starts to slow. So people don't paddle in the winter as much. Go figure. I don't know what's with that. I paddle all year. All right, I got a lot of gear to clean. I got a lot of stuff to put away, and after 5 days in the rain, this van has a bit of an odor to it. So, yeah, I got a lot of work to do. I'll see you on the water.